What you got, MDC?
Just riding my bike, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Safe.
that an MRI safe helmet?
Always. You know, I can hit my head, get my MRI for my spinal injury. This thing's staying on, baby.
Never even take it off.
Never.
What you got for us, Dr. Morrison?
You know, those helmets I'm thinking could have been helpful in the dabigatran talk. I'm just saying. All right, guys, we are talking about the safety of MRIs today. And this is a common issue, right? And especially in patients who have pacemakers and ICDs. So let's get into it. All right. So are MRIs safe to use is the question when you have a pacemaker or an ICD. And according to the FDA and device manufacturers, having a pacemaker or a defibrillator that is not labeled MRI conditional, aka a legacy device, is a contraindication to MRIs. This author or a team of authors wanted to do a study, a prospective one, looking to see if MRIs were actually safe in those patients who had a legacy device. They were like, prove to us that this is really harmful or not. So in this study, they took a pretty good sized sample, 1,500 patients with a clinical indication for an MRI that all had a legacy device. Now, during this MRI, they did a few things. They had it supervised by a nurse, which was really important. This nurse was cardiac trained and device training and knew how to troubleshoot their devices if it needed to be. They monitored the patient's symptoms and also their vital signs. The MRIs were all performed at the standard institutional protocols, and they used this standard MRI strength field of 1.5 Tesla. It's not important detail. What is important, though, is that the device parameters they measured both at baseline and immediately after the MRI. They wanted to make sure that the device was interrogated consistently before and after. They would put the device in this mode of asynchronous mode for pacing dependent patients and on demand mode for everyone else. And most importantly, they did external pacing backup just in case. And why is that important?
That's like Rob. He does the same thing. He's always got his pads on because he's a bit older than you and I, Mies. And so he's just ready. When his pacer, his ticker goes out, you just plug him in.
24/7, baby. 24/7.
That's right. So external pacing backup should always be available, and that's what they did. And then the device was reprogrammed to the original setting after the MRI. So that all makes sense, right? Here's interesting. Now, in their outcomes, they separated this out based on adverse events and also based on the device parameters. Now, a lot of these details are it's a lot to take in, but really the main adverse event that they saw most of the time happen, about 9%, was this power on reset. Now, DeClerc, how would you describe power on reset?
So, Rob, remember that time I was at your house for that sleepover and there was a lightning storm and the power went out?
Everything went haywire. Nothing was working, man.
Yeah. Remember that time? And then when it came back on, it like your little night light thing was like giving us the wrong time?
Yeah, my Aladdin night light, that one.
Yeah, your night light with the clock on it, that thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And then we were late for breakfast because, it just reset. It went to power reset.
Yeah, that's how you get things to work, too. Just turn them on, turn them off, turn them on.
That's right. Power on reset. So in the results, they had about 2,100 patients who had MRIs performed on those 1,500 patients. 58% of them had pacemakers, 42 had ICDs, and 21% of these patients had more than one MRI exam. Now, the median time to follow-up was 1 year, and 63% of the participants had long-term follow-up. And what did they find? We already discussed this. The main adverse effect was actually 9 patients. I correct myself, is 0.4%. So very low. Only 9 patients had this power on reset adverse problem. 5 of the MRIs were terminated, mostly for symptomatic issues. And then they had asynchronous pacing and pacemakers without magnet mode programming. Again, it's too much detail for this conversation. Now, the device parameter results were interesting. There was no change in the device parameters large enough to result in the lead or system revision or device reprogramming. So basically, it was safe. They didn't see a big change. So in summary, 96% of the MRIs that were performed without an occurrence of an event or a notable change in lead setting immediately after MRI. And so in this discussion, unlike previous studies, this study is novel because it suggests that any association previously of having an MRI with this legacy device is actually probably going to be safe. Now, there were a few limitations. This was a single center only. It was unable to have long-term follow-up for all the patients, right? Only 60% of them had long-term follow-up. Defibrillation testing was not performed on ICDs afterwards. And so you can't extrapolate findings to future pacemakers and ICD systems. So those are the limitations, but it certainly does pose a good question. And in their summary, 96% of all MRIs were performed without an occurrence of an event, so fairly safe. Now remember, they had backup external pacing that should be readily available. That was important. And the most notable adverse effect was this power on reset. So contrary to previous studies, this study does not suggest any association between the region of imaging, they're talking about the chest location, and detrimental changes in device parameters. So MRI is safe or not safe, boys, with these legacy devices?
My take is that it's okay. I wouldn't say that it's totally safe, but what happens is known, and then you can be prepared for it. So I don't think that MRIs can be approached just blasé or willy-nilly. They are approached that, okay, these are the known consequences. These are the backups we need to have for every patient because here's our expected events.
Yeah, it's just like if it stops working, turn it off, turn it back on.
I don't think that's the message. I don't think that's the message at all.
Just turn it off. Turn the patient off. Just turn it right back on.
Can somebody turn off his mic?